Hello and welcome to HIP's live stream number 2. This is Jared. I am here with Ming and Carrie, the Metal Geek.
Hey,
as
everyone.
always, there you go, Ming. Good job. All right, so tonight we're going to talk to Ozeal. Ozeal has several projects going on. He has Ozeal Media. He has No Permission Needed, which is his podcast. He's got Pod Houston and Pod Houston Insider, along with Vid Houston. So you've been doing a lot.
That's what ADD looks like, man. That is a lot.
So me and Carrie, obviously you guys are here. We're glad to have you back again.
It's an honor. Yeah, full disclosure, I'm nowhere near Texas or Houston, but in my heart, my head, my mind, always in Houston. There's always a case of Topo Chico here somewhere.
There you go.
Diner, and somewhere there's Astros memorabilia hidden away back here. Yeah, I'm a Houstonian at heart for sure.
And he's dreaming about Whataburger.
Always. Oh man.
I don't blame you. I live right around the corner from one, and I still dream about it every day. So obviously, Ming, you're always welcome here in Houston. We're glad to have you every time you come.
I appreciate that, and I will be down there when they let me, I guess, or when it's when I don't have to fear death and disease, I will be back down there for sure.
I can't wait for that. I'm sure we'll probably meet up at some point and play some games or something.
That's a guarantee, my friends.
That's right.
Awesome. So okay, I guess let's go ahead and get started. Ozeal, thank you so much for being on this live stream with us. We appreciate your time. You've got a lot going on. Obviously, Ozeal Media. Let's start with that. What can people expect from Ozeal Media? What is it?
Yeah, so Ozeal Media is a bespoke podcast production company that I started about a year ago, I want to say. Yeah, it's been about a year now. I was getting asked a lot by a lot of businesses and some brands on how to launch a podcast. And I decided to go ahead and go that route, which it was to my resistance. I actually did not want to do any kind of agency type of work, but it's something that I've been really enjoying. And it's been really cool seeing brands and small business owners embrace podcasting as a way to share their story, to humanize their message, and to get it out there. And I think it's been fun. It's been a fun project, and I've been doing it. And it keeps me pretty busy. A lot of consulting, and more I'm seeing more business owners, and also like a lot of government institutions gravitating. I know, Ming, you know about that. You're seeing a bunch of like businesses that you would never thought of would be interested in starting a podcast, and now they're getting behind the mic and sharing what they're about. So it's been fun, man. And
it's a great new marketing tool. It really is.
It is.
Yeah, that's smart, man. And I started seeing comparisons way back in '96. I was learning how to build websites, and I was doing them for fun. And if you dig into archive.org, there's like the first Ming Chen website where it's just a total vanity project.
Yeah,
I loved it. I was like, whoa, I can scan a photo and have it up right away. This is awesome. And then came one day, it was a travel agency. It was like, hey, we'll give you $100 to build us a website. I'm like, holy crap, I'm getting paid for this. And now it's like you're smart, man. Like this is, this is a new way to market. And but I couldn't believe I was getting paid for it to do something I was just messing around with. And then as it got bigger and bigger, I was like, wow, I might be able to get a job doing this. And I did, like literally a month after I graduated from college. So it's really great to see businesses embracing this format. Not only is it smart, but it's something we've been doing for a while. So we kind of have a leg up on anybody else that wants to do this. But we've seen the power of what this can do and how it can help businesses. And beyond all that, it's fun. It's so much fun. So yeah, that's great.
And addicting.
Yeah, for sure.
There's a lot of ad spend behind podcasting too, it's just great to see.
Yeah, you're seeing a lot of the big players come in because I forgot what the stat was, guys, and maybe you guys can can let me know. I think it was over 50%. I'm not sure exactly, but over 50% of people admitted to buying something from a podcast host if mentioned on a podcast. I think it was like 67% or something. I'm not sure to be exact, but it goes to show that being behind the mic and cultivating trust with your audience, and then, sharing that, the likelihood of them purchasing that directly from the podcast, if they mention it, I mean, that's powerful. I mean, that's the power of voice. And that's a power of humanizing the message, which is kind of the thing that I've been kind of spearheading. Is that's where it's at. That's where podcasting is heading. So, Ming, I mean, this because you've been sharing a lot of the stuff, the content that you share, and you mentioned something about having fun, and that's something that I know Jared and Carrie, with you guys, are super passionate about your niche. But that's something that anybody who's interested, who's watching, when it comes to podcasting, don't get caught up in the business side. It's so easy to get caught up in the business side. You started this because it was a passion of yours, and then it kind of evolved and became a thing where people are paying you. But just have fun, guys. I think that's the message. A lot of people are getting, well, how can I monetize? How can I do this? How can I grow my audience? I'm like, yo, relax. Because first things first, enjoy the process and have fun.
If you're not having fun, nobody else is going to have fun.
Oh,
Yeah,
Preach.
exactly.
Preach.
And you talked a little bit about podcasting, and especially like video bloggers and stuff like that. It's such a personable thing because your listeners know you so well, even though you've never met them, you don't know who they are, but they know you really, really well. It's sort of sometimes it's a weird phenomenon, but it's a great one to have.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think one thing that you kind of touched on about people buying stuff from podcasting, I think what's really interesting is podcasts can reach consumers where TV can't, radio can't.
Right.
I mean, radio a little bit different than TV, obviously. I mean, with iHeartRadio, you can tune into certain radio channels, but I mean, podcasting is on demand. It's right there at your fingertips. So it's literally advertising on demand, if you want to look at it that way too.
Why do you think the attraction, though? I mean, what are your thoughts on why are people gravitating and are more likely to purchase from the podcast host rather than radio ads and TV and everything else that you see online?
I think
it's a lot easier. Oh, go ahead, Carrie.
I think it goes back to that personable thing where you know the host and you start to trust what they're talking about, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
No matter if it's like Audible or, ordering food or whatever it is. Like, oh, they talk about it, they enjoy it. I'm going to do that too. And I get a discount. Okay.
Right.
Sounds good.
It's a lot easier, I think, in my opinion, to gain that parasocial relationship with a podcast host rather than it is like a movie star or a TV actor or something like that. You dive into the personal life of a podcast host more so than anybody else, like more so than watching a TV show. So,
yeah, it's definitely more personable. And if you buy something, if an audience member buys something that we've pitched, they'd be like, "Hey, I got Death Wish coffee. It was awesome," and I'll reply to them. I'm like, "Yeah, man, right?" And like, I'm glad you loved it. They get that instant feedback. It's a very personal connection. And then most of the stuff, I mean, not most of like all the stuff I plug is all stuff that I love and use. Right, so I'm not, I would probably, I don't want to say never, but everything I've promoted is stuff that I love. I know and love and use. So beer, coffee mainly, but
right. Right.
There could be worse things, Ming.
Yeah. Other podcasts, I own a Casper pillow. I bought Blue Apron. I may have some MeUndies out there here, somewhere. It's just smart on their part, and it's definitely working out for them. So,
yeah, there's something about building a personal connection. I mean, there's something about having somebody in your earbuds that cultivates that intimate relationship that you don't get in TV and even video. I think audio and listening to somebody's voice, the power of voice is just amazing. And it does something to the brain to really build that relationship. And I purchased like fitness products from podcasters that I listen to in the health and well-being industry. So, I see the attraction. I guess I'm always curious to see from the attraction from a different perspective as well. And Ming, I know you talk about, a lot of the coffee and just seeing how I mean, yeah, I mean, it just works. And Kerry, you talked about marketing. Now, a lot of businesses are saying, well, how can we leverage this to kind of market our industry?
Yeah,
I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? Do you feel like, is it blasphemous to think or to say, hey, go ahead and come into our industry, start a podcast to market your business? Or what's your take on that?
It depends on the business. Sometimes it can definitely work. But a lot of celebrities have jumped into it this year. They had nothing else to do, so they've all started creating podcasts, and companies are doing it. It's a new avenue, which we've known about for how many years, a long time.
Right.
But a lot of people are starting to jump into it and realizing that there's a huge audience out there, and they can reach a different audience than they just can with a TV commercial or a radio spot or something like that too.
One thing about podcasts in general, like majority of podcasts are like the niche of the niche, right? So you're really going deep into the skin of a listener and finding out what they truly like. And since they truly like that one topic, that one weird little topic that most people don't cover, they relate to it so much because it's something that they're really passionate about.
And you mentioned the celebrities. I love that a lot of them are like, whoa, I can start a podcast. And they have this huge pool of guests that they can potentially pull from to talk about whatever they want. So I love that. And then, if you look at the celebrity and like the acting community, for the most part, they're taking on roles, but for the most part, somebody else wrote their lines for them. Somebody else is directing them. They really don't have a lot of freedom in those roles. But the podcast, it's, they produce it, they book their own guests, it's their own show. Mm-hmm. They can promote whatever they want. It's their show. And I love that. Like, you can tell that they're having fun with it. And I think that's amazing.
And other celebrities tend to open up more when they're talking to somebody that's already in their field a little bit. It's not just a typical press type tour. I have to go on all these podcasts. No, I'm talking to a guy I've been in a movie with, really open, which are enjoyable for the listener too.
Yeah, you get to know the person, I think. Podcasting allows you and gives you permission to say, hey, listen, this is who I am, and I'm going to share what I want. There's no censorship, and I'm going to do my thing, especially if you own your RSS feed. There's no censorship, right? Some platforms don't allow you to do that. But yeah, I love the again, just being real and just humanizing your message. And that's something that I've just been so excited about more than ever. And I predicted this like 5 years ago. I'm not sure if you saw it, Ming, but I would tell, as far as, because I know a lot of our viewers are independent podcasters. I say, hey guys, get ready because the pros are coming.
Yep.
And sure enough, the NPRs and McDonald's and the big brands came here. So I was like, as an independent podcaster, what can we do to level up? Not in production, but what can we do to learn from these professional broadcasters who have been doing this for quite some time? This was an easy layup for them. And for us, I think it was something where we had to be mindful of, and how can we level up with the audio production and just the angles and the creativity behind it. I was just curious about that. And what do you guys think about that as far as being an independent podcasters and seeing what the NPRs, because they're still dominating the top 20 list. What can we do as independent podcasters to ensure that we are doing our best and competing against the big dogs?
Just engage your audience. Boom. Build an audience and engage them.
There you go.
Engagement is very important. You want to and be yourself. Don't be somebody just to try to gain a listener. I had, like you talked about before, Jared, a very niche show. I have a niche show where we're metal dudes that talk about video games and Disney theme parks. I mean,
I love that.
You don't get more niche than that. Yeah. But there's a fandom out there for everything.
I think I realized though, because I didn't even want to start this because I thought, I was like, this is for, podcasting is like, this is for guys like Kevin Smith, like
right.
They're famous already. They have built-in audience. They're great storytellers. They go out, they're professionals already. And he was like, no, you don't get it. Like anybody can do this. I'm like, really? So I did it and I had so much fun. And I was resistant at first because I was like, I didn't go to broadcast school. Like I don't have any training in this. I don't even remember last time I talked into a microphone, much less to an audience. And I think this format has leveled everything.
Yeah. There you go.
Like you could go and make your own This American Life or
Yeah.
or how I built this. There's no reason why you can't. Maybe there's, they have a bigger budget, so they can hire outside editors, or maybe get better, slightly better gear. But I think everything is kind of leveled out. So if you put your own time and passion into it, anybody can be just as good as those guys. And that's what I tell everybody. I was like, you know what, just if you can put enough time and passion into it, and and love into it, I mean, there's no reason why your show couldn't be as good as anybody else's.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Love
The
that.
level of entry is so low. It's so easy to get into podcasting, and it's so easy to get popular in podcasting just by finding the right audience.
All you need is a voice and a microphone.
Exactly.
That's it. That's it.
So I guess a good question right now, Ozeal, what really got you started and what appealed to you about podcasting?
When I look back, I always wanted to be MTV VJ. I always wanted to be that guy where I interview cool artists and creatives. And I remember having a hand recorder and recording myself, interviewing. And I actually would interview friends, and we would watch MTV, MTV Raps, and watch Adam Curry. And I was always like, I want to be that guy. So I've always been curious about learning about people's journey, about the art of conversation, and really engaging in people. So even before I started podcasting, which I got into podcasting 7 years ago, but prior to that, I was interviewing people. I had a YouTube channel that I was interviewing. It was called Indie Loop. And I would interview small business owners. And I was really learning as a musician. So I spent the bulk of my 20s and early 30s in music. And I really want to dismantle this whole notion of the struggling artist. And during that time, the internet was kind of popping off, and people were building their own platforms online. I was like, I want to help creatives learn more about marketing and branding, and how we can give ourselves permission to become our own successful, independent business owners. So I was interviewing people. I was interviewing, independent musicians, and I was just extracting that information and saying, hey, here, guys, this is what we can learn from the pros and people that are doing it successfully. So that was really where it came from, guys. I've always been passionate about the art of conversation, about extracting information and sharing it with others. So I've been a content creator since I was in my early 20s, making music and sharing. But I've always been fascinated about how can we get this message and share it with more people and build community around this particular niche.
That's very interesting. I like your concept that you had, because I don't know. I think it appeals to a lot of people, and I think you're doing the right stuff. I think the way that you went about building your own community has worked really well for you.
What was that impetus moment of, I'm going to start a podcast today, this is what I'm doing?
When I started a podcast back then? Yeah. So I was watching an entrepreneur. I think it was called Actually, it was called Mixergy, and I was very heavy. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the business entrepreneur. His name is Andrew Warner, who's still active, and he had a show called it was Mixergy, and it was about an entrepreneurial podcast, live stream show. Actually, it actually wasn't live stream. It was a video show, video cast. And when I saw that, Carrie, I was like, I want to do that. And then when I saw how the entry level was I just need a podcast and a mic, and then just speak my truth and bring people on, I was like, cool. So I can start my own radio network. I can be that guy. So that excited me because, again, you mentioned this, people, I didn't go to broadcasting school. So I was like, I just need these essential tools to launch my own podcast and interview people. Let me go ahead and get started. So I launched a podcast called No Permission Needed, which was focused on helping creative entrepreneurs learn about entrepreneurship and marketing and branding, et cetera. So I launched the first rendition of it, and I had over about 300 episodes in the can, and it was just exciting. And that's where I really cut my teeth and learned a lot about the art of the interview and kind of the bells and whistles of building an online community. And it was an amazing experience, man. I really enjoyed it. So that was kind of the inspiration and the impetus behind it, man. It was just, I want to do that. And it was like, okay, well, you can. All you need is these tools. And I'm like, cool. And that's all I needed, man. Just gave myself permission to start and launch it. And that's exactly what I did. And never looked back. I've loved podcasting.
That's awesome. And that was that you started that 7 years ago, you said?
Yeah, man, 7 years ago. Yeah.
Was it hard grabbing guests in the beginning? They're like, podcast, what the heck is that?
Right. It was, man. It was. And in the begining, I mean, it was still going on. I mean, people knew what it was, but I reached out to people that had really have been on other shows. So I got, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with CD Baby. Remember cdbaby.com?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so Derek Sivers. So I was able to snatch some really big guests early on. And the way I did that, guys, was I was building relationships with them a year prior to launching the podcast. So I was on Twitter and I was on AOL and I was building those relationships. When I dropped that podcast, I was like, hey, can you be on the show? So right out the gate, my first 10 episodes were pretty solid. But there was some struggle a little bit trying to get some guests as well, because a lot of them were like, well, how many, what are your download numbers, et cetera. And, but at that time, they were just like, oh, sure, we'll be on it. So that was kind of my strategy, is how can I come out of the gate with 10 strong guests. And then that would attract other guests to be on the show. So that was kind of my strategy.
Yeah, I started back in the day when people would question me. I don't have an iPod. How can I listen?
Right. That was way back, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Well, I guess what ended up making you want to build communities? Because I mean, you have Pod Houston, you have Pod Houston Insider to go along with that. You also have Vid Houston. What really started that mindset of like building the communities here in Houston?
Yeah, so that was actually, I've always been a community builder. Even when I was in the creative entrepreneurship, when I was in music, I would start these meetups in these communities, in these live events, which I'm very passionate about, to bring people together. I was all about hosting, coming together, let's grab some beer, let's have some panelists, let's have a conversation about how we can become better musicians, how can we become better podcasters, content creators, et cetera. And that's something that I've always been passionate about. So about 2 years ago, actually a little over 2 years ago, I was like, where are all the podcasters in Houston? Like, I know there's a great blogging community here. And I'm like, but where are the podcasters? So I simply went to meetup.com and search, and there was no podcast group. So I was like, dude, I got this. Let me start this. And we met at Cafe Brazil, which was our first meetup. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that cafe over there on Montrose. And I launched it. It was about 20 people that showed up. And I was really surprised because, I mean, I just really didn't do a lot of marketing for it. And people were like, hey, let's do this again. And in the beginning, I actually was just like, okay, let's just casually do it. And then from there, it kind of built. And now, fast forward to now, it's like over 1,000, people in our email list. And it's been growing steadily. And it's been pretty cool to see it grow organically without really little marketing. Just people are really interested in that. So with Vid Houston, I did the same thing. I was like, where are the video content creators? I started getting really heavily interested in creating video and starting a YouTube channel. So I did the same thing. I was like, let's just go Vid Houston. And not get really too creative with the name and start that. And also it's been growing as well. So organizing live events, guys, and community building has been kind of my jam for a long time. And I think has helped me as a podcaster, building my own community, but also there is this giving component in my whole way of approaching life, is that create value, create a space where we can get together and share and support each other. And I think that's why I started Pod Houston to begin with.
I love it. I think a lot of people don't have that in them to be like, hey, I'm going to spend extra time.
It's a lot of work, man. Yeah.
Out of my day and bring everybody together. I think most people are so, if they even have the time to start a podcast or create video content, I mean, that takes up the rest of their free time, and they're so focused on their own projects that it's a rare person to be like, hey, let's bring everybody together. And I love that you did that. I think before it came out about a year ago, I was like, hey, I wonder if there are any, podcasting groups out in Houston. And that's how I found Pod Houston. I met you, and I was like, who is this guy? I got to meet him, man. Like, this guy's awesome. Yeah, even around here, before we started the studio, we knew of maybe one or two other podcasts around here.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's got to be more though. And I still, I I've had ideas of doing a monthly podcaster meetup here in New Jersey where I'm at. I just don't have the time, but I know they're out there, and I know it's tough. It takes somebody with that drive to bring them all together. So hats off to you, man, for sure.
Thank you, man. Yeah, some people were asking me like, what is, because all these events were free, and I would get speakers at every event. Actually, as a matter of fact, Jared spoke at one of them. And so people were like, why are you, you're doing this for free? You're organizing these events, you're buying, snacks for people, and it's completely free. But I mean, in the beginning, I was just, I really want to build a podcasting community because I'm so passionate about podcasting. And I believe that if people they have a purpose and they have a passion and they have a desire to share something with the world, start a podcast. And I wanted to help other people launch their own platform. So people were like, are you insane? You're going to burn yourself out. And towards the end, it was a little bit of a burnout, which is now with the pandemic, everything is virtual. So it's been really cool just kind of transitioning into the virtual world and incorporating a live stream to continue the connection, right? And still build community virtually now, which I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's just smart though. It's if you've met other podcasters, everyone's got a different setup. Everyone's kind of unique setup. They use different tools, different software, and it's cool. It's like, hey man, what is that? That looks really cool. It's like, oh, that's called StreamYard. You should try. You should check it out. And bam, you've just bettered yourself. Simply by asking questions and seeing how other people do stuff, and taking inspirations from other people. It's just smart.
Yeah,
I hope
exactly.
This trend of people doing live streams and all these things that sort of had to happen this year continues on past this year, and it becomes like a normal thing. I think people are getting used to it now. They know exactly what it is. Even just podcasters, or you have to do it for work or whatever. It's just become a commonplace thing now, which is great.
Yeah, I think it will continue to grow. I think that's my thoughts on the future of podcasting is I think it's transitioning into a live stream component. I mean, Ming, I see you and you're steadily busy, man, killing it, bro. I feel like you have so much fun. I was actually talking to a friend of mine and your name came up because, we were talking about podcasting and we were talking about the future of podcasting. And he's, I don't see really no business structure behind it. How can you make money? Is there an interest? And I'm like, man, you need to check out my boy Ming, because the dude is probably doing 10 live streams a day with a bunch of cool creatives and businesses. And I think Ming is a great example of a podcaster who has implemented a live stream strategy and given us a glimpse of the future of if you're a podcast, a visual component makes sense now. And also video is powerful. I mean, there's a reason why, and I think Facebook ads, I think it's over 70% conversion rate because people love video. And of course, humanizing the voice, the power of voice, audio, that isn't going to go anywhere. So I think if you can, for podcasters, obviously it's audio, but if you can find a way to transition into video, a cast where you live stream it in addition to the podcast, it's powerful, man, to use both. And as Ming said, services like StreamYard, it doesn't take a lot for you to simulcast it and to do both. But I think, Kerry, you mentioned people are getting more comfortable, and that's a great point because I was afraid of live stream. I was like, man, I'm just, you're imperfect, you're stumbling. It's not like podcasting. We can go back and fix it up in post, right? Live stream, it's real. But if you think about it, that's the reason why people love podcasts, because it's real. People don't care about the uhs and the ahs. Yep. People, if they do, go take them to NPR. There's NPR for that, okay? But for podcasting, I love the idea of us really being humans and just talking the way real humans talk. And live stream gives that component where it's live. You're seeing the fumbles, you're seeing the imperfections, you're seeing the technical flaws.
It's a natural flow of conversation.
Exactly. That's the appeal of live stream. And I think that's why live streaming and podcasting, I mean, they're it's brother and sister. I think it's a great combination. And we're going to see more of that.
Are you planning on keeping live streaming as part of your, I guess, your whole podcasting community going forward?
Yeah, so we do Pod Houston Insider, which we launched a couple months ago, and it's a mastermind. It's all virtual. But even with Pod Houston future events, I'm going to incorporate more virtual events. However, I will say that nothing beats it, guys, right? In-person events. I mean, I love going to a live event, and I miss them immensely. So I'm probably going to get back to the live events once this thing passes. But I think knowing about the virtual setting and knowing how to pull this off if something were to happen in the future, or just having it as part of your strategy. I mean, Ming, do you see yourself? I know you've gone heavy on live stream. Have you gone heavier since the pandemic, or is this something that you were doing before?
I think we try to encourage almost all of our podcasters to live stream. You know, there's definitely, you know, there are comfort levels where some people are like, that's just not for me.
Yeah.
But I was like, all right, inherently you're watching 2 or 3 people talking. It's not super interesting. But now with the tools available, you can make it interactive. Especially with StreamYard, people comment, you can literally pull it up on the screen. You can interact with them. That's something that was something that we couldn't do before. That immediacy, that real-time interaction is huge, I think. And even if you don't interact, even if you just kind of do a straight live stream, I was like, what a great way to market your podcast in a video format. Take the file, put it on YouTube if you want, throw it up on Facebook, put it up on IGTV, take your best of, take some clips,
repurposing content.
Take your best minute out of it and put it up there and show people what you're all about. It's such I love it. In the early days, like, oh man, I'm fumbling with cameras and it's like, oh man, what do you mean you can't hear us? And but now it's literally it's a press of a button and you can be live.
Yeah. And
that's why I think if you haven't jumped on live, or maybe you're not recording your podcast, give it a shot. It's fun and it's easy.
Lots
and you're getting another dimension to your content creation that you can use to promote your show for sure.
And similar to starting your own podcast, whenever people are talking about, oh, well, I started my podcast with my phone, you can start live streaming with your phone as well. StreamYard has the capability. You just log into the website from your phone and just go. So they make it extremely simple.
Get a good microphone or microphone for your phone, though.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
Great tip.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Kerry, for saying that.
But I mean, the accessibility is there. So if it's something that you want to do, you've thought about doing, just go ahead, get your concept right, and start.
Concept right. What does that mean, Jared?
Well, I mean, so you have to find out what your show is about, what your format is about. You don't want to just go out and just start rambling about nothing, because you're just going to be talking into the void. You need to have your format right. You need to have your concept right to be able to find your audience. Now, whenever I say you have to have it right, doesn't mean it has to be absolutely perfect, but know where you want to go with it and get started.
Yeah. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's something with early podcasters I've been really big on is nailing down your brand, or at least having an idea of where the context of your podcast. I'm not sure what your thoughts are, and I actually would like to get your thoughts. How important is it right now in 2020 onward to focus on niching down your concept before launching that podcast versus, let me just call it the Jared Show or the Ming Ching Show? You know what I mean? So how important is that? Does that work in 2020, or should we focus on building a brand on a specific niche to really see success now?
I personally think it's a little bit important to have your niche at least explored and really understanding where you want it to go.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to start there, but know where you want it to end up.
Yeah.
And that way it's going to evolve. Like every show that I've done that is still going on or isn't even going on anymore evolved in some way. Mm-hmm. So however it starts is most likely not how it's going to end. So if you keep that in mind and you know where you want it to evolve, I think that's going to be your best route, and that's pretty important.
I think it's great to have like sort of a bit of a niche, because pop culture is such all-encompassing, umbrella sometimes. But if you find your spots under that umbrella, and you can be comfortable there, and avoid the rain of
Yeah.
a bad metaphor, but
yeah, little planning goes a long way. It's great to have that kind of overall idea. I've run into people who's like, oh, I got this idea. I'm gonna interview guests in my field every week. I'm like, okay, great. And they get that one guest for their first episode. I'm like, great. What do you got coming up next? They're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, well,
right.
you know what? You should probably line up maybe your next 5.
Mhm.
Some of them are going to drop out. And then you can, if you have it planned out, you can kind of move them around. And just for longevity's sake, little planning doesn't hurt for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Gary.
I had a question for you, sir.
Yeah.
How important is consistency in podcasting to you?
Oh man, it's everything, man. It's everything. I think I always say it's especially for the first. I mean, it's always important, but in the beginning, right at the gate, I see podcasters make the mistake of going random, just dropping off and saying, okay, I'm going to release a podcast every Tuesday, and then I'm going to drop off and then do it on this random day. We have to train our listeners. And as podcasters, you have to be able to show up. And part of cultivating trust is being consistent with content. And if you show up and you show them that, hey, listen, you're the real deal, and I'm showing up every Thursday or every Tuesday with a brand new episode, that's going to do a lot in building trust and letting them know that you're serious about delivering the goods on a weekly basis.
And it gives them something to look forward to. They're going to know, hey, it's Tuesday. It's time for that new episode.
100%.
Looking forward to it.
100%. And that's part of growth. And when I see podcasters, when they come to me, say, Ozeal, my download numbers are not up. And I look at 2 things. I look at the branding and marketing, and then also look at the structure. And if they're not consistent, and then I see they're not consistent, I'm like, there's a big problem right there, because you're not showing up. Right. And people, especially now, guys, and this, podcasting, our industry has gotten really competitive in that. I want to say competitive, but there's a lot of people jumping into the podcasting world, right? It's definitely, people are now, everybody, I feel like every day I get emails and, hey, I'm starting a podcast. So now more than ever, I would say just be consistent, because I tell you what, like 90% of these podcasters that are coming out are going to drop the ball. They're not going to be as consistent. So when you show consistency, you're able to kind of already separate yourself from the rest. Because most people are going to pod fade, right? And this is not easy. I think a lot of people get into it with the notion of, great, I'm going to just get a podcast to share. And I just love the idea of saying that I have a podcast. But this takes work, guys. I mean, you've been doing it for a while, Jared, Carrie. You guys have been in the trenches for quite some time, and you understand that you got to go into it knowing that this is work. But if you're passionate about sharing your message, and you understand, and you figure out ways to be more efficient in producing your content, and that comes with time. And if you just stick it through, and I know it's kind of cliche to say, just stick with it, but really, if you just stick with it and be consistent, you're going to grow your podcast platform, period.
To follow up that, how important are metrics to you? Like how many people listen from this part of the country, or how many downloads I had, or all those type of metrics people really look at?
So when I first started, I was really caught up in the metrics. Guys, I was like looking at my Libsyn account, like how many downloads do I have? And then I discovered something with experience, that in the beginning, metrics don't matter. To me, I believe it's message over metrics. Like focus on delivering great content, delivering your message, and forget the metrics. The results will come through being consistent, to creating great audio, quality content, and just delivering value. I think a lot of podcasters will get in there and just kind of ramble, but deliver something, right? People listen to podcasts because they want to get entertained. They want to be informed, right? They want to be educated. So make sure that you're delivering something specifically to your audience. And I think a big mistake that I see podcasters make is that there's ego involved. And it's like, I just want to talk what I want to talk about. But I feel like context is important. Because if you don't have context, I think you're going to lose people. And sure, can you grow it? Absolutely, you can grow that, but it may take you a long time to grow that. And if you're consistent, you can definitely grow it. But I think having context and really speaking to your audience and having your listener in mind is also part of growing with the podcast. So going back to the question, Carrie, metrics, I think is message over metrics. Do metrics matter? Of course, if you're trying to seek out advertisers and sponsorships, money, of course, they're going to look at metrics. But I think in the beginning, head down, get in the trenches and just focus on being consistent, at least for the first year. And then later on, you can go back after a year and say, okay, I'm not growing. What's happening? And again, you can look at your branding. Either your branding is off or your marketing is off. And then you have to look at the structure of how you're delivering your content. Are you consistent? So I don't know. We'd love to get your thoughts on that, guys. What do you guys think?
So
Great
I
question.
want to go ahead and say that marketing is a big thing, and I really want to talk about that here in just a little bit. But my question for you would be, whenever it comes to consistency, do you think that consistency on release schedule and time of the podcast, like how long your podcast is running, and what about format? Do you think consistency on your format is something that you need to be focused on?
Consistency on format. I think if you're consistent with delivering the content when you say you're going to release the content, I think that's first and foremost the most important thing. I think, we can look at format. I think I think in the beginning, having some structure, I think does help. But of course, you can break off and get creative with it. But yeah, I'm not sure if that answers your question, Jared. I think it's format, maybe not so much. I think you can always mix it up a little bit. Again, it's all about how you feel the show, the format fits the show and how you want to deliver that content. But I think just being consistent and just scheduling your content. If you're going to release it on Tuesday at 6 a.m., then stick with it.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the most important thing about being consistent.
I think the simple analogy I give to everybody is, Game of Thrones. Everyone loved Game of Thrones. Came out every Sunday. Everyone watched it. Could you imagine if, next Sunday, we didn't feel like releasing an episode today.
Right.
Maybe we'll do it next week. We don't know. Or it might come out on Tuesday. We're not really sure. No one would have followed it if that happened. As great as a show that was, if you didn't know when the next episode was coming out, or if you felt like, well, what do you mean they didn't feel like releasing one? Like what? Yeah. I don't think it would have gotten the following it did.
Yeah.
Even though it's such a great show. So I mean, that's a very simple analogy for about that.
I love that.
And I think you mentioned numbers and metrics. Maybe I don't have like 1 million listeners, but I remember going to, like a Comic-Con in Houston or LA, but I was like, wait, I record in New Jersey. But when I went out there, people were like, hey man, I love your podcast. You guys are doing great. I listen every week. They're very passionate. I was like, you're all the way out in LA. I remember when it hit me that other people.
That's awesome, right? That's an awesome feeling, man.
Were listening and they were passionate about it, and they were asking questions about specific episodes that maybe came out like years ago. And I was like, oh wow, like you're really. It was a great feeling. It was like they were Game of Thrones fans. Like we were Game of Thrones to them.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really cool. So I think that that kind of passion, that kind of connection, that beats any random number in my book for sure. So
having those hardcore fans that know you personally through your podcast and are fans because of that totally beats out any kind of metrics you can get.
There you go.
Yeah. And then I think to me the biggest compliment is like, hey, I listen to your podcast. You guys, it's awesome. How do I start my own? Like you guys look like you're having so much fun. You guys look like this is something like that. I want to do that. Like, how do I do it? Like, oh, well, let me show you. So yeah, that's great. I think to me, that's the biggest compliment.
Yeah, what's really interesting about the podcasting community is that, and it's hard because especially to one of the mindset hurdles that a lot of podcasters early on make or have rather is that they're like, is anybody listening? And I'm like, well, let's look at, your downloads. And I'm like, I got 100 downloads. I'm like, picture 100 people in front of you. That's 100 downloads. That's awesome. And especially if you're consistent with it. That's amazing. I said, you should embrace it and be grateful for that. And then treat them like they're super fans because these are super fans and respect that. I think it's important. And the thing is like, well, they're not engaging. I'm like, well, that's the thing about podcasting. And I know you guys can relate to this. It's a faceless community. So you don't know. And sometimes what I've noticed, even when back then, when, show notes were really, really popular. And I was, hey, leave a comment. And I was seeing the download numbers. But when I say, hey, we'd love to get your feedback, give me some feedback, drop it in the comment section in the show notes, / etc. And nobody would really leave comments, but I would get emails, or like you, Ming, I would be out in person and they would say, hey, dude, I really like that podcast that you did. And I'm like, how come you're not? So I've noticed that it's a very kind of passive, like people don't in podcasts, they don't engage. They're listening, guys. So those they are listening. It's just they might not be the most engaging community right out the gate. But they are listening. And I think that could be daunting for a lot of new podcasters. It's like, I see them, but they're not responding. I'm like, no, they're listening though. They're listening, so relax.
I think a lot of that has to do if they have to go out of the way to make a comment or something along those lines. You talked about community before. I think an important part is building a community online. I've created a Facebook community for my show, and I've only done that in the past year, and it's been immensely helpful and a lot of fun. Just being able to interact with those people,
I mean, I think right now what we're seeing with the Facebook groups, it's kind of like the AOL chat rooms of today. It's a chat room that we're creating online where we can ask questions, we can get feedback, and we can just say, hey, listen, we love, toys. We love to talk about beer and coffee, and we love metal. Let's all talk about this shit. Like, let's all get in here and chat. And I think this is the modern day chat room, is the groups. And I think building community
really
is powerful. You need, if you're a podcaster, you have to build community in some form or fashion. Now, if you have a name, if you got, if you're like Ming Chen, who's, been doing it for quite some time, and you have an audience, but even Ming understands the importance of cultivating his audience because he does a lot of live streaming. And for us, like, I think it's important. Like, if you're going to start a podcast, build a community. I always say it's BAM, like the acronym BAM: brand, audience, then you monetize, in that order. You got to build your brand, you build the audience, and you can't talk about monetizing your podcast until you have an audience. In that order, that's how you launch a podcast. Damn it.
Yeah. I love that.
Bam. I love it.
Bam.
But
So let's talk about marketing for a minute.
Let's talk.
Whenever you're talking about marketing for a podcast, what are you looking for specifically?
Marketing a podcast. Well, right now we're living in this day and age where, repurposing is important. So, repurposing, audiograms and snippets, and maybe getting some testimonials from guests. If you have an interview-based show, use graphics and say, hey, this show was amazing. One thing that I do want to share, guys, this is something that's been on my mind. And anybody, this is a business idea right now. I'm going to be exclusive. This is a business idea that I've had. Anybody want to take it, go ahead, take it. But here's something I don't see with podcasters. Huge opportunity. Those iTunes reviews that we get. And some people think that they're great, and some people, they're just reviews. But why not take your reviews, get what people are saying about your podcast, put them on a graphic, and then share that. Think of it like movies. When movies come out, New York Times said that this movie, that movies do that. So because that builds up social proof. So as podcasters, share what people are saying about your podcast. I think that's a great marketing tool. And I wish there was a service out there that would say, hey, listen, we're going to go down your iTunes reviews, and we're going to go ahead and create graphics, brand them, where you can share on Instagram and on Facebook, because I think that would be a powerful marketing strategy to you.
Let's talk later.
Yeah.
Let's talk later. We got something there.
Seriously.
Yeah, seriously.
It's
amazing.
And I don't know why people don't leverage that. So going back to marketing, Jared, I think it's, obviously social media, community is a marketing tool. Say, hey guys, I just released this episode. Here is the new episode for you guys. Check it out. Give me some feedback. We'd love to hear from you. Also, including people's feedback on the show, giving people shout outs, email lists. I'm not sure how big you guys are on emails. I don't like shooting out emails. I'm not a big email newsletter type of guy, but I do see the power in leveraging it when the new episode drops, going directly, because the email list is your lifeline to your listeners. And I think saying, hey guys, I just, had this great interview with Jared. Check it out. We talked about this, and that. I think that's just another great way to market. So it's, and I think now we're getting to a point where a lot of people are really getting into automating, marketing, and figuring out how can we be a little bit more efficient with marketing our podcast episodes. So I still believe that social media is powerful. I think I just saw a stat today, the podcast movement. Somebody was sharing that the word of mouth is still powerful. I think it's over 50% of people saying that word of mouth and recommendations. So I think leveraging your community and saying, hey, share this. And also like your guests, say, hey, listen, I thank you for being on the show. Can you share this with your people?
Right.
You know, and I think doing that. So there's a lot of, when it comes to marketing is my jam. So I can go on and on for days, and also live stream. Hey guys, I just got off, did a show with Carrie, the Metal Geek. It was an amazing show. Go check it out. I make sure, and leverage it. So be creative. I think creativity right now is what we need in the marketing space. I think we have to go beyond just saying, hey guys, I just dropped, on Facebook, a new episode. Check it out. Here's the link. We got to do much more than that right now.
I was about to say, people need to be involved in actively seeking out what are the social media trends right now, because just popping your link on Facebook with the algorithm the way they are now is not going to work. No. It's everything's different. Keep up with what's working, what's not working. If you have a little bit of a budget, try to do it at, targeted ad spend to people that could be into what you're doing. If you're only doing a show in Houston, target only people in Houston. There's smart ways to do your marketing to get your show to the right people.
100%, man.
Yeah. That being said, you got to put a little effort into it. It's going to be a little work. I love using these analogies, but I was like, hey, if you open up your own small business, you don't just sit back and be like, hey, I'm open. Everybody come now.
Right.
You got to go and tell people that you're open. You got to tell people why you're awesome. You got to tell people why they should be coming, or in this case, listening to your show. And I see a lot of people, they release a new episode, they don't even post it anywhere. They don't tell anybody about it. I'm like, well, people aren't going to come just because you uploaded it and it's on iTunes and Spotify. That's great. Yeah, tell people it's there. And by any means necessary. So if you got to go and dance your ass off and make a TikTok or a Facebook, Instagram reel or whatever, then do it. Or make it fun.
Yeah,
make it something that comes from your own voice. But scream it from the rooftops. And even I was like, you have this very powerful marketing tool and it's free. It's called social media.
Yeah.
Use it. And if that's something maybe some people that's not up their alley, then hire somebody to do it. Yeah. Ideally it would come from you, but if it's not something that you want to do, get somebody else to do it or get your co-host to do it, but somebody's got to be out there screaming it. And even in the real world, if you're going to networking events, if you're meeting people in real life, print out some 4x6s, print out some business cards.
Yes.
In the real life, very easy. Even if you have to get like 5,000 on Vistaprint for $10.99, it's a small price to pay to gain a couple audience members.
People need to get back into that old DIY, flyer, standing on the corner and here's my flyer, check out my show, Yeah.
I've been preaching that, Carrie, for quite some time. I'm gonna say, hey, if you have, like, let's say you have a podcast on coffee, right? Print out some posters, go to coffee shops, go start promoting, really, I think we need to get back to the guerrilla marketing, because what happens with social media is that there's so many platforms and people just get jaded and then they just don't know what to promote. They're overcoming the mindset of like, I really don't want to market myself. And I get that. But if you really want to grow your podcast, you got to put some skin in the game. And part of being a skin in the game is publishing, creating that podcast, publishing, but marketing it and doing some due diligence to the podcast and marketing that. But get creative, guys. Go out to these coffee shops, Metal Geek, going to venues and just posting, this is a Metal Geek, going to comic book stores, having posters, having stickers. We need to get back, as you said, Carrie, back to the DIY. I love that, bro. I mean,
brand yourself like what Ming does.
There you go.
Always be branding.
Always you too, Carrie. If you got to do it that way, man, we need to get back to that. We need to get back to that as far as marketing. Jared, what do you think?
No, I am completely in agreement with you. Yeah. I mean, a business card goes a long way. Whenever you're going to, say, Pod Houston, and you're meeting with a community, and people are asking you about yourself. And I was lucky enough whenever you had me come to Pod Houston and do the panel with the other guys, and. People are interested. They want to learn. They want to get as much feedback as they possibly can. And just having a business card with whatever QR code or whatever link that goes to all of your projects, it goes a long way.
It does. It does. Especially when, not that many people are doing it. I think if you have like a little flyer, poster, some stickers, a koozie, a beer opener, something creative, I think that will attract some attention. I think
people like freebies.
Exactly. Yeah. It works, guys.
It does.
Freebies that people will actually use is a key
thing
too.
There you go.
Right. So I think we pretty much covered everything that I had in mind. Do you guys want to open it up to some questions and a Q&A?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Anybody, fire away.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah, if anybody has any kind of questions for Ozeal or me or Ming or Carrie, you can go ahead and put them in the comments, and we'll kind of go over those. We have had some comments throughout this whole broadcast. One from YouTube sitting. And this came early on, and sorry that I've kind of been ignoring the comment section, but we've been on a pretty good roll, and I didn't want to interrupt the.
It's been fun. Yeah.
So it said hello all. Hello.
Hello, Tico B.
Yeah. So this going back to whenever we were talking about, you're hearing stuff on podcasting, you're buying it. Yeah. So this kind of goes right back to it. Yeah, people buy stuff off of podcasts. So, build your audience, get your niche right. And yeah, people will end up coming to you for, advertisements and whatnot. So let's see. Brian Little came in with good evening, gentlemen. Hello, Brian, if you're still with us. Let's see. Brian also said he loves Pod Houston.
That's
so
right.
There you go.
He's part of the Pod Houston Insider Group. Yeah. What's up, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, Pod Houston is a very good idea, Ozeal. I do like what you did with the community, and it's pretty much focused on, education and trying to make sure that people are ready to start whenever they are. And then whenever they do start, it's how do you continue to succeed? And that's great.
Yeah, because as we know, podcasting could be get very lonely, right? It's basically us, the laptop, our mic and our truth, as I like to say, and it could get lonely. And I think having some accountability and some support to share and say, hey, listen, I'm going through it too. Especially if your download numbers are not up, and it could just be like very discouraging. And I always tell people just continue podcasting. It goes back to being consistent, stick with it. And I think I wanted to create that group for that alone. Is just the educational component, because as we know, podcasting is always growing, and there's always new things, new gadgets that we have to learn about, and new marketing tactics and new strategies that we can implement to grow our podcast platform. So I love that component, and I think if we created a space like we did with Pod Houston and continue with that ongoing education, it's important to, especially as an independent podcaster. I think it's important to have that space, and that's the reason why I created that. So yeah, I'm grateful, and I love the fact that you guys, all of you guys, are part of the Pod Houston community, and we're going to keep it going, keep growing.
So Dwayne Lusby came in with, what is the best podcast community in here?
Come on,
Come on, man.
We all know.
Come on, man.
As of right now, that's pretty much all the questions we have. Brian did say that he is still here. No questions, though.
Okay, no questions.
I do have another question for you, Ozeal.
Yeah.
What do you think is the future of podcasting right now?
Yeah, I think the future, it's going to be, I think live streaming is going to be important. It's going to play a major role in podcasts. I do see an opportunity for podcasters, once this thing passes, to take the show live and to do in-person live podcast setups where they interview and make it like an event, like very much like musicians create their own shows and book their the bands that they want to work with. I think we're going to see a good opportunity for events where independent podcasters can collaborate with each other and have, let's say, 3 podcasts, 30 minutes each. Let's bring some sponsors. and making it, an events. I think there's some opportunity there as well. So I think
we're going to,
we're going to see more hands-on, more in-person events with podcasting, and also, again, live streaming. I think those are the two things that stand out for me.
And that's really what this is supposed to be.
That's right.
Until COVID came around, we were supposed to be the live event, offering free or not offering live podcasting in events for 2 different shows, once a month. And unfortunately, COVID happened, and it just won't go away for some reason.
Yeah, I think you're right on the money. Ever since kind of the restrictions relaxed a little bit, I think in the last 2 months we've done a live remote event somewhere at least once a week. In the last 2 months. Just this morning I was at it was a restaurant supply place that had their grand opening, and they're like, "Hey, can you come? And we want to do a live stream from there, and we're gonna interview the owner and some of the major customers." I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Kept it safe. Everybody was kind of seated farther apart, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And I think it's definitely gonna head that way. It takes me maybe 20 minutes to set something like that up. And hopefully the internet connection is strong, which these days it's pretty, you get pretty strong internet connection wherever you're at. But yeah, I've noticed this huge trend where like every week I was like, oh man, we got a live remote at a bar this week or outside the bar, or things like that. Well, we've been doing a lot of there are a lot of organizations out there who were doing live fundraisers. They do their big fundraiser every year, and usually it'd be a big in-person event, 300 people. In person, it'd be X amount to get in, and they weren't able to do that this year. And they're like, oh well, they start panicking. They're like, how are we going to raise the money for our organization this year? Like, you should move this online. We'll stream it, we'll do it safely, but run it like you would with your speakers, and we can throw in video clips or whatever. And at the bottom, you can tell people how they can donate. And they're like, can we do that? I'm like, absolutely, we can do that. And that's taken off as well. So, and even when things do get back to normal, and even if they're able to have the big 500 person live event, I'm like, when you get back to that, why don't you stream it next year? Get more people to donate, get more eyes on this event. It just makes sense. And even with the conventions, a lot of the conventions have gone virtual. I'm like, well, when we do get back, these panels that, maybe not everybody could afford to go to San Diego Comic-Con, maybe your room isn't big enough to fit everybody. Why not stream it online, or, maybe charge $5 for people to watch it online and make it even more accessible. So yeah, that's definitely going to happen for sure. I think this whole thing's kind of forced us into seeing, it's like, oh man, we should be streaming this for sure.
There, man. It's always been there, and I think now, as you mentioned, Ming, that it's why not do it? If you have a live, in-person event, do it virtually, and have. I know some conferences do it where they give you like a virtual ticket, and I think we're going to see more of that with a lot of conference founders and people going that way. But yeah, there's especially with social media, because there's people that are loving just watching it at the comfort of their own home, right? Or record it where they can watch it at their own convenience. And yeah, live streaming is going to play a big role, not only for getting that content virtually out, but also for podcasters to kind of show our face and show a little bit of a different aspect to our voice and what we do and our personality. Because I think, Carrie, you mentioned another thing about the future of podcasting. I think we're going towards the culture of personality. Like, I think expressing your personality visually is going to play a major role with podcasters. I think people want to see the podcaster now. I think we have to go a little bit beyond just the voice, and then say, hey, this is the voice for your convenience, right? Radio on demand. You can listen to it at your leisure. However, here's the YouTube video. Here's what we're doing live. And I think people enjoy it. I really enjoy your live shows, because the setup, I love looking at the aesthetics. I love looking at the personalities. And when I hear their voice, I'm like, I really want to, what do they look like or whatever. So I love that. And I think that's another thing we're going to see in the future of podcasting is
people want to put that voice and face together. I got a comment like a few months ago. I posted a picture of my group, and somebody commented like, oh, I've been wondering what you guys looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just met somebody a couple nights ago that listened to one of my shows, and he was like, "Yeah, you look exactly like I thought you would."
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, is that good or bad? I'm not sure.
I know, right? Exactly.
Thanks for listening.
Don't know.
Yeah.
But it's exciting, guys. It's really exciting to just see, podcasting. I mean, everything that you guys are doing with Hips, Jerry, you and I talked about this when we spoke at the San Antonio, what was it?
Texas PodCon.
Texas PodCon, yeah. And we talked about what can we do as independent podcasters. And I think that, going back to the importance of community, we have to really support each other, much like musicians got united and start supporting. And I believe that podcasting is a new music industry. I believe the future will be podcast networks, like independent musicians, how there was independent music labels. Podcasting will go this route. And I think we will have to unify, get organized, get professional, and really build a foundation within our own niche. And I really do see it going that way. And as independent podcasters, we have to stick together because, the big dogs are going to do what they do and they're going to do their own thing. But I think there's a huge opportunity as an independent podcaster to build a business infrastructure and to build a solid community within our niche moving forward. And I know that's the mission with Hips. That's the mission with Pod Houston. And I think just, supporting each other, and I think it's going to be very important for the longevity of our independent podcasting community.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about what Carrie has going on with Comic Palooza, the podcast family there, because I know, Carrie, you got a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you can't really talk about just yet, but I'm really excited to see what it does for indie podcasts here in Houston and, the surrounding areas as well.
That was one of my things is I wanted to support the independent podcasters in Houston. I've had a lot of great ideas and, with everything happening this year, we're going to see what can actually take place, but the first thing I think about when I think about where I want to take it is community, like you were talking about. It's just, we're just trying to work on getting that built up, and everybody is a friend to each other, and we're not really competing against each other because we all do a little bit something different.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, it all goes back to finding your niche and finding your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yep. Agreed.
I'll be working, I know, with all you fine gentlemen on some ideas for next year.
Can't wait.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
Love it.
We need to bring you down here, Ming. Come on to Houston, man. Yeah.
I'm down.
He's coming.
I'm down.
Yeah, man. Get you some cocktails and some brews, man. Some brewskis.
That's
not how you roll.
To any of that. So.
Okay, we don't have any other questions coming in from the comment section. So, Ming, Carrie, you guys have any last thoughts for Ozeal? Or Ozeal yourself, do you have any last thoughts that you want to put out into the world?
I'm just glad you're here. I mean, I love what you've built. I love your encouragement to the community. I love all of your posts. Posing questions. Everybody is that what'd you podcast about this week? Yeah. Or you'll. And I don't know where you cultivate all these news sources, but you're always posting up cool stats, everything, and just keep doing it because we're all reading it.
Thank you, man.
It's all inspiring us, and you're doing a great job.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
All right, Carrie, any final thoughts?
Thank you, Ozeal, for being here. I really do appreciate what you're doing with Pod Houston. It's I eventually, once things clear up, I will make it to one of your meetups, and we'll be able to meet everybody else and just hang out, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Likewise, man. Look forward to it.
Yeah, and obviously, Ozeal, man, thanks so much for being on this episode with us. A lot of insight, a lot of good stuff for people out there. I hope that people listening really listen and really take it to heart and build their communities even bigger than they already are. Yeah. Build their audiences and really find their path with their podcasting.
Yeah. And thank you guys for inviting me. This has been fun. I'm a big fan of everything that you guys do. Ming, I'm a huge fan of what you've done with the Shared Universe. I thought that's an amazing brand. I love the freaking name. I was like, that's a killer brand name. I love it. and everything that you represent and all that you're doing for your community over there in New Jersey. Kerry, of course, everything that you've done for the podcasting community since day one with Comic Palooza. Of course, Houston, the city of Houston always is excited. It's one of those events that people do appreciate and look forward to. And look forward to next year and seeing what you have in store. And of course, Jared, you're a friend of mine, man. We connected and we became brothers at Texas PodCon, and we kept in touch, and seeing your vision with HIPS and seeing it kind of manifest and unfold. And I love the conversations you guys are having, and I look forward to these in the future. I think it's important for us to not only build community, but also take the conversation and let people know that we're here to support each other, and that we're here to build the independent podcasting community up to its fullest potential. So you guys are playing a major role in that, and I look forward to being a part of that journey. Yeah,
appreciate it, man. You are too.
Thank you, brother. Thank you, guys.
So Ozeal, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, so at Think Ozeal is my personal account, but you can reach out if you're interested in podcasting, guys. Of course, Pod Houston Facebook community. Just go into search and search Pod Houston. Join the community. Not only we're getting a lot of people from all over the U.S. and all over the world coming into this community. They love the engagement, and we're here to support you. So if you're interested in joining a podcast community, Pod Houston, also Vid Houston as well, you can join our community. And if you want information on our Mastermind Insider Group, go to podhouston.com is where you can find it. And of course, Ozeal Media, if you're interested in learning more about launching your own podcast. So that's where you can find me, guys. Thank you so much for allowing me to share that. I appreciate that.
Awesome. Yeah, not a problem. So our social is at HIPS HTX. You can also email us hipshtx@gmail.com. That social media is for everything. That's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. So
that's called
reach
branding.
Out to us. Yeah. Reach out to us. Let us know. There's podcasters out there who might want to jump in on, talking with me and Ming and Kerry, and, kind of getting some insight from them, and, just indie podcasters and how they have, built their podcast and what their journey is in podcasting and what their absolute goals are. Not everybody is looking to monetize their podcast. Some people are just doing it to have fun, and
right.
That's awesome too. So, reach out if you want to be on the show. Reach out to us, let us know, and that'll be something that we can talk about. So, all right, I guess that's gonna do it for us. Ming, Kerry, Ozeal, thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I love having these conversations. They're always so much fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you, guys. Do it again.
Yeah, obviously. Of course. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us. All right. Thank you so much, and